morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful summer weekend. A lot of stuff going on here on the call today. First thing I want to talk about is reviewing some of the planning errors retirees make. We've all seen them, but how can we leverage them in our favor? So let's talk about that. Number one, keeping the spouse in the dark. Now, we talked about this before. How many couples, when you run it across a couple, how many couples know exactly what's going on? Both the husband and the wife are equally knowledgeable about what's happening with the investments. How often do you come across that? Yeah, I've never. A lot of people are saying rarely, and I actually never came across that. So how do we deal with that with the 5Q system? And well, first of all, before we go back to that, why is the spouse so in the dark? How does she feel she's being treated by that current advisor? As a partner or as a third wheel or fifth wheel, whichever you want to look at it. Why do most, when they do surveys, why do most women not like the advisor? Yes, they feel like they're ignored. They feel like they're people that the advisor's talking above them or doesn't value their opinions, etc. How do we deal with that with the 5Q system? Well, with the first 40 minutes, it's all about her. And again, I'm talking in of generalities here. Sometimes you find the man is the person who takes care of the family, the woman takes care of those finances. Probably 5% of the time I found that, but 95% of the time it was the guy that took care of the investments and the woman took care of the family. And either way, the person who's taking care of the family is brought into the process in the first 40 minutes, 45 minutes of the 21-point checklist, because we're talking about things they are concerned about. So our whole thing is about not keeping the spouse in the dark, but actually bringing them into the light. Number two, it's more than estate planning is more than wills and inheritance. So how many other advisors? I know that advisors will hand people off to attorneys. They'll hand people off to attorneys, but how many other advisors are making sure that their power of attorney, that their client's power of attorneys work with Social Security? What percentage or what number? If you're not with 5Q, what's the likelihood that advisor is making sure the power of attorney is working with Social Security? How about zero? Right, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. How many are talking about or are making sure they have an advanced care health care directive? Not just a medical power of attorney, but a health care advanced directive. And guys, why? What's the reason we tell our clients they need to be, or we spend so much time on an advanced healthcare directive? Why do we spend so much time on it? What's the reason we say, yeah, I know this is boring. I know you're rolling your eyes. You're saying, geez, when are we going to get to the fun stuff? When are we going to get to the sexy stuff? When are we going to talk about investments? Why are you talking about all these Debbie Downer stuff like the healthcare directive? What's the reason we give as an excuse? What's it? See if anybody's even paying attention. Specific instruction to help the medical power of attorney. Yeah, I agree with that, Mark. Absolutely. But what's the reason we tell them that we spend so much time on the healthcare directive? Nobody's got it so far. June says the advisor didn't cover this. Yes. So that's June. We're exactly right. That's where we come up and say, and you're right too, Andre. That's the way we differentiate ourselves. The other guy doesn't, and that's why we say, what kind of advisor would I be? I didn't cover this. But what's the reason we give them? Guys, think about this. What is the number one expense that can undo 40 years of savings? What? Medical. That's right. Medical. Not even, you're right, Mark, but even, Mark said long-term care, absolutely, but even when is 90% of the, I've experienced this in my own family, when is 90% of the medical expenses occur? When you're 60 or those last 6 months of life? When you're 60 or those last 6 months of life when every single thing is going wrong? Yeah, it's the last 3 months, last 6 months. And do many of these things really need to be done? When you're 87 years old, should they be doing aggressive medical procedures when you're 87 years old? Well, maybe if you want it, but how many 87-year-olds, especially if they don't have a great quality of life anyways, want extensive medical things that are going on? Yeah, you can burn through a ton of money that's not going to be covered by Medicare. A ton of money. But if they don't have that in their advanced directive, what's the hospital going to do? Go to the kids and say, you know what, really, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense to do, or do they try to run up the bill? What do hospitals want to do? Run up the bill or try to convince the kids that they don't need it? They want to run up the bill. So the fact that we spend advanced care directives because, hey, that's the one thing, if you want to live to the very last second that science and medical research can do, super. But how many people want that? Most people do not want that. But this is the only way they're going to be able to, without guilt, be able to say enough is enough. Let's let them go, you know, into the ride into the sunset without all of the, with dignity. That's right, Dale, with dignity. So all of these things we cover. Why? Do we get paid on these things? No, but we're infinitely involved with these. Why? Because as a financial advisor is probate, or not probate, is estate planning. As a financial advisor, financial advice. Yes. And are we acting as an attorney when we're doing any of these things? Do we? No, we do not. But we make sure these things get done in the correct way. Does that make sense? Number 3, dismissing long-term care costs. Mark already brought that up. Now, here's the thing. Should we ever talk about long-term care with a prospect? Or how much time? Should we spend a lot or a little time talking with long-term care with a prospect? Dale's got it. A lot or a little? Oh, Dale's the only one with the right answer. That's right. A little. Why? Because first of all, long-term care, how many people want to buy long-term care insurance? Most or virtually nobody? Number 2, if they did want to buy long-term care insurance, you have underwriting. Does everybody get underwritten? No. So we don't bring up long-term care planning. And first of all, does people ever want to think of themselves as being in need of long-term care? No. We know like 65% of them will at some point need long-term care of one shape, form, or another, but nobody wants to talk about it. So we do not talk about it except with one of our what? USPs. We say what? Have you looked at the program that provides 2 years of long-term care without expensive annual premiums? They'd like that, right? Everybody would like to have long-term care protection as long as they didn't have to pay for it. So we use that to get them in. But we don't want to cover long-term care while they're prospects. However, once they become a client, should we be talking about long-term care? Should we be talking about long-term care, whether it's in-home, assisted living, or long-term nursing home? Should we? Yes, we do. At that point, you need to cover it. You need to cover it because what direction is long-term care, home health care? You know, everybody says, "Well, I want to stay in the home," and that's going to be, guys, is staying at home really all that much cheaper? Yes, it is. But how much is this kind of cost going to? How quickly is this kind of cost going to eat up their savings? I mean, we used to. I remember when long-term care was 75. Now it's almost twice. You know, it's 50% more. So we need to be covering these things. And do we have methodologies to do that? Yes. You should be not long-term care insurance, but do we have life insurance? Do we have annuities that have long-term care riders that will help them overcome that? And we talked about the trip. Remember the trip? Is buying life insurance a fantastic long-term care? If you have a couple buying life insurance on one person and the other person, is that a great long-term care policy? Yes. Why? Because will they both die at the same time? No. And when one dies, what happens? There's a death benefit, which will do what with the retirement savings? It replaces all of the amount of expenses that occurred while that person is long-term care. It replenishes it, right? Does that make sense? So we need to be addressing this, but not with prospect. We need to make them a client because bringing a client on like that's difficult. But once they are a client, then yes, we need to be addressing these things. Making decisions based on the news. Guys, this is a really tough thing to do because the news scares people because that's what the news is designed to do. So we need to have a plan in place so today's news is matters not. So how often do you think I look at my portfolio? How often do you think I look at my portfolio? Tom says 1 year. Yeah, a couple times a year I look at it. So a couple times a year. How often, if you look at your portfolio daily or even weekly, what's the likelihood you're going to make? What happens to the likelihood? If you look at your portfolio daily or weekly, what happens to the chance of you making a mistake? What happens to the chance of you making a mistake? In fact, how many of you remember this where both Fidelity and Vanguard both did this study, and they said, oh, we need to go back. I wish I should go find that study. So I'm sorry I didn't go back and get it. But I'm sure we can find it somewhere. But they did a study, and they said, we want to come up with a system that we can offer our clients that will give them the best rate of return. So they went back and looked at all of their accounts for like 20 years, all their accounts, and they looked at which accounts did the best, which accounts had the highest rate of return over that period of time. And then they went and asked those people, how did you make your decision? And why did the vast majority of the accounts, what did they discover? The vast majority of the accounts, the reason they made so much money over a number of years. What did they find out about them? Nobody remembers? Or are you still typing? Why did they? Andre says less trading. You're right, Andre. Why? You're right. It was actually right, Andre. Less trading. Why did they have? Yes, John. They forgot about them. They completely forgot they had the accounts. So not only, Andre, did they do less trading, they didn't know trading. And we've all seen the reports, right? Delbar reports where this showed that if you manage your own, how many people that manage their own accounts match the market? How many people who manage their own accounts match the market? None of them. Why? And how much below the market were they? Significantly below. Why are people who manage their own accounts significantly below the market? Hey, money managers are below, but retail customers are even way more below managers because they make too emotions, right? Chasing returns, right, Bob? Right, Nick? So they make decisions based on what? The news. And if we have a plan in place, it helps them prevent that. Number 5, many affluent retirees are reluctant to draw down savings. So in their definition of affluent was assets greater than $320,000, income greater than $100,000 a year. And why won't they spend? Well, number 1, they want to leave an inheritance to their children. Number 2, they're uncertain of medical expenses. Number 3, they're uncertain of life expectancy. They think, man, people are living longer. I need to make that money last longer. So our job is to do what? What tool do we have to help them spend a lot more than they're spending? To draw down their savings better. What tools do we have? Well, a number of tools. What tools do we have that helps them spend more? Let me bring up just a second here. I'm going to bring up our website. And let's look at that. What tools do we have? Tom's got one. Yes. So if we go to Getting Started, we go to Toolbox, we go to our Elevator Speech, we go to our Unique Selling Propositions, and our number 1 is to increase the income from your retirement accounts by 25% or more and lower the chance of running out of money without moving a single investment. When we go there, we've got how many ways to do that? But these are the 2 big ones. Will the sale help them spend 5% of their retirement without worrying about running out of money? Yay or nay? And 5% is how much more than 4%? 5% is how much more than 4%? 25%. 25%. And with the ATCM model, it'll be 25% all the way up to double. Remember when we went through? And if double what they're currently spending with less chance of running out of money. And again, if you don't know how to do that, again, if you go here and then go down to both of these articles, you'll see minimum 25% higher rate of spending with less chance of earning money, all the way up to double, what they're currently spending safely with less chance of earning money. We can do that for them. Make sense? So we can help them with the fact that they're not spending as much as they want, and they can do it safely. And it comes down to what? Having a plan. 54% of retirees had a financial strategy before they retired. Only 12% had it in writing. Is the sale in writing? Yes, they've got a plan. So guys, these are new business opportunities. We have unique selling propositions for long-term care. We have unique selling propositions for income. We have unique selling propositions for lowering taxes, which also increases their income. You utilize and know those unique selling propositions backwards and forwards, because it'll help people avoid mistakes and helps people live better lives in retirement. So once we get in front of those people, how to sell anything to anybody? This is from HubSpot. I love HubSpot. So how do you sell anything to anybody? Focus on the buyer, number one. Do your research ahead of time. Get to know them first. Be helpful. Ask thoughtful questions. Listen to what they say. Use psychology. Meet them where they're at. Speak to their emotions. Be human. So, guys, how many of these do we do with the 5Q process? Do we do focus on the buyer? Well, let's go through. Do we do research ahead of time? Do we get to know them first? Are we helpful? Do we ask thoughtful questions? Do we listen to what they say? Do we use psychology? Do we meet them where they're at? Do we speak to emotions? We do all of them. That's right, John. We do all of them. So make it about them. Make it about them. Make it about them. Guys, when I was making $50,000 a year, I took any client that had money. There are many reasons why I went from making $50,000 a year, 8 years, no more than $50,000 a year, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 8 times, to where I jumped to 356, 667, then 967. So from making no more than $50,000 a year for 8 years, all of a sudden within 3 years, I'm making 20 times that. I'm making $1 million a year in a very, very small territory. Why? Well, there's many reasons for that. I started recording my meetings. I quit making excuses and blaming them. I started blaming myself. I came up with a system. But the other thing that I did is the last year I made $50,000. I said, I'm going to focus only on retirees. So I basically cut loose all of my clients who are not retired. And I gave them to another advisor and said, now here's the thing. I'm giving them to you. I made the introduction so that everybody was happy. Everybody was knew that this person was going to take care of them and that they were happy with that. And I didn't sell it. I didn't even sell that book of business. I just told them, listen, you will not churn these accounts. If you churn these accounts, I will help that client write letters of complaint to the Attorney General and to the insurance department. So you will not churn these clients. And the reason I'm giving it to you free, so you don't feel like you need to make up the money to pay me. So I just gave it away. So when I looked at a client, I said, listen, I only work with retirees. I can't, if you went to your family medicine person and they said they'll do surgery on you, you say, really? You'll do surgery? Yeah, I do surgery. I do a little bit of surgery. I do a little bit of family medicine. I do a little bit of cosmetic surgery. I do a little bit of liver surgery. Would you want that person doing surgery? No. I said, no, I'm not. I don't want, dude, I want a specialist. He goes, well, I am a specialist. I'm a specialist in surgery. Well, I thought you're my family medicine. Well, I'm a specialist in family medicine too. Well, but how about diabetes? Well, I'm an expert on diabetes. What guys? I would always laugh at Waddell and Reed. I don't know if you remember them. Waddell and Reed always used to have a billboard as you drove out of Rochester. Said, "We are experts in college planning. We are experts in retirement planning. We are experts in tax planning. We are experts." Guys, if you're an expert in everything, you're what? Are you an expert? If you're an expert in everything, are you an expert? You're a generalist. That's right. No, you're not an expert. So when I met with a retired client, I said, listen, I only work with retired clients because you have a special needs. You have special opportunities. You have special problems. I'm an expert on all of those things. I can't be an expert on college planning, and I can't be an expert on pension planning. I can't be an expert on 401k planning. I am only one person. All of my research, and I spend thousands and thousands of dollars research every year, but it all goes into people who are retired and their particular needs, their particular opportunities. And if I'm telling a person that, I have to what? especially in Rochester, it was a small town. I mean, only 100,000 people. Surrounded by an hour and a half of farmland every direction. If I said that and then they found out I had another client who was not retired, that I couldn't do that. So I had to look them in the eye and be what? And we all know this. You've all heard this. You should have a target market and only work that target market. And by doing that, guess what? It helped me know my customer better. It helped me know my customer better. Did I work with the ultra wealthy guys? In fact, how many doctors did I work with even? And I don't know if consider doctors ultra wealthy, but they're certainly wealthier than my target market. I worked with one doctor. All of my clients, not all my clients, 90% of my clients were teachers, engineers, or nurses. That's it. And that's how I made $1 million a year, with teachers, engineers, and nurses. And I knew them backwards and forwards. Middle income America, I knew. Retired middle, I knew backwards and forwards. I knew my customer. That's what you want to do. And that because I knew them, because I worked with the same people over and over, it allowed me to do so many things without research, because I was doing the same thing over and over and over. There were still custom plans for people, but there were custom plans that looked very, very similar. Just like when you go to McDonald's, your order is custom. You're not ordering the exact same thing as the other person that's behind you. But because they do similar orders all day long, they can do them very, very quickly and with high quality. That's what I did for people. I became McDonald's of middle income America retirees. And it made me a lot of money, just like it made McDonald's a lot of money. So when you're going to be a specialist in retirement planning, college planning, be able to have some 401ks on the side that you manage, guess how much money you're ever going to make? A lot or middle of the road? Who makes the most money? Specialists? Who makes more money? A family practitioner or an internist or a surgeon? A surgeon does. Who makes more money? A general surgeon or a liver surgeon? A liver surgeon. Who makes more money? A liver surgeon or a transplant liver surgeon? A liver transplant surgeon. Who makes more money? A liver transplant surgeon or a pediatric liver transplant surgeon? A pediatric liver transplant surgeon. The more specialized you become, the more money you make. And I know that it's hard to visualize that, because you're like, I need money. Why would I turn down an account? Guys, I turned down account after account after account when I was making $1 million a year. Why? Because I would not have made $1 million a year if I weren't turning down those accounts. Does that make sense? Build rapport. What do I think about building rapport at the first meeting, guys? Because that's what we're all told. When we got into sales, we were told, got to build rapport at the first meeting. You got to make them like you the first meeting. You got to find things that you can relate to them on, and that they'll feel better about working with you. Guys, how much rapport do I ask you to build at the first meeting? Tom says it's a waste of time. I'd agree it's a waste of time, but not only is it a waste of time, but it hurts you. Why does building rapport at the first meeting hurt you? Again, with the greatest generation, they've all passed on, or most of them have passed on. Now we're working with boomers, Gen Xers, etc. Boomers, are they going to fall for your rapport building activities? Oh, wait, you're you went to the University of Minnesota. I did too. Yeah. Or going to Michelle and saying, oh, I love that dress. Oh, you fish, I fish. Oh, you want a truck? Why do you want a truck? Well, you race. Oh, I think racing is awesome. I've been to. What happens when you start to do that kind of stuff with today's clientele? Do they fall for that kind of fake rapport building? Yeah, salesman, right. It turns them off. So at that first meeting, I do my unique selling propositions, and I say, I'll come back with a report. That's it. The reason they come back is not because they're looking for reports, because they want those things, those 5 unique selling propositions that I have. That's what they want. They're not coming back for a report. Now, even at the second meeting and the third meeting, do I build rapport? I do build rapport. I highly recommend you build rapport, but how do I build rapport? How do I build rapport? What's the number one tool? I tell you, the most powerful tool we have, the most powerful tool we have to overcome an objection, the most powerful tool we have to get them to like us, the most powerful tool we have to build rapport. With this tool, you can somebody will give you a objection, and you can turn that objection into an immense rapport building opportunity. Now with feel, felt, found, all that does is create a bigger bridge, a bigger moat between you and the client. They don't fall for that feel, felt, found. What tool do we use over and over and over which builds rapport, whether it's in a normal meeting or with an objection? Empower, that's right. Empower. So out of the APE, it's not agree, it's not parrot, it's empower. Aping does allow us to ask a lot of questions, but it's the empowering that we use as a rapport building tool, telling them they're above average, finding that specific one thing that we can call out to say you are above average on that, but one particular thing. That's how you build rapport. That's real rapport. You can't be everything to everyone, but you can be something great for someone. Again, specialize. Give first, sell second. That's another thing we need to do. Give first, sell second. Do we do that? How do we do that with 21-point checklist? Give first, sell second. What's the first 40, 45 minutes of our meeting about? Things we don't get paid for. What kind of advisor would I be if I didn't do these things? I know I don't get paid for it. I scratch my head and wonder why I'm doing this. But what kind of advisor would I be if I didn't cover the survivor's guide? What kind of advisor would I be if your power attorney didn't work with Social Security? What kind of advisor would I be if I didn't make sure you had an advanced care directive, so the biggest expense you could ever have, you're in control of that. You're the captain of that. What kind of advisor would I be if your beneficiaries weren't right? What kind of advisor would I be if titling wasn't right? See, that we give first, sell second, because they don't trust us, but by giving first, selling second, we build that trust. Ask great questions and then listen well. That allows you to be a great coach to your client. And do you even need to come up with great questions, guys? Remember when I've gotten twice now, in the last 2 years, we've gone through the entire 21-point checklist process, and I would ask during and after each one of those scripts, how many clients would answer any differently than Jeff answered? And you always told me none of them. They would all answer the exact same way that Jeff answered. So you don't even have to come up with great questions. You have a prepared script that's worked for 25 years, where people were answering the questions the exact same way 25 years ago as they do today. And then you listen well so that you can guide them. That allows you to be a great coach to your clients. Be mindful of psychological quirks, the anchoring effect, decoy effect, rhyme and reason, loss aversion, peak, and all of these things. Guess what? All of these things I included in those scripts. You don't even need to worry about these things. So why does FBI use mirroring negotiation? So we talk about mirroring. Mirroring means what? If they talk fast, you talk not as fast, but faster. If they talk slow, you don't talk as slow, but you talk slower. If they lean back, you lean back. If they use different types of gestures, you'll want to use those gestures too. Not mimicking them. Well, I guess mimicking them, not copying them, but mimicking them. We've had whole calls about this. Emotion. Do we tap into the emotion with this, with the 20-point checklist? And here's a trick question. Let's see how you do, because we tap into emotion that no other system out there does. What's the emotion that we tap into with the 21-point checklist? And I'll spend as much time here as we need to for people to, I want everybody to answer this. What emotion, John's got it, but stated a different way, John. John, you got it, you nailed it, but stated a different way. What emotion do we Nick's got it. What emotion do we tap into, guys? If you do the 21-point checklist, what are they thinking at the end of it? How do I know I've got a new client? How do I know I've got a new client? Steve, take a breath, Steve, and I want you to think, what will get somebody to leave the current advisor? Because Steve said, I'm smart and ego. If they think they're smart and you've helped them think they're smart, does that give them any reason whatsoever to work with you? So what's the reason that the 21-point checklist will get 100% of people leave their current advisor? Because that's right, Steve. They are angry with their current advisor. The current advisor is taking advantage of them. The current advisor withheld information that made the advisor more money and them less money over and over and over. That's what gets them to leave. That's what gets them to fill out paperwork. Guys, you've listened to tapes where I've had advisors talking to clients, and the clients were filling out paperwork on vacation. You know, how many times before coming into the 5Q have you heard people say, oh, we'll do this after we get back from vacation. We'll do this after my daughter's wedding. We'll do this after my son's graduation. We'll do this later. The thing with the 21-point checklist, they'll do it before their daughter's wedding. They'll do it before their son graduates. They'll do it while they're on vacation. Why? Because they're angry at their current advisor, and having that current advisor have access to their money, have management of their money, is doing what to their brain? See, that's a worm. Distrusting the guy who has all of your money is a worm that starts drilling into your brain. And how soon do they want that money to move? How long are they willing to wait? If you do it properly, they are angry, they are fed up, they are disgusted with their current advisor because we say so? No, because because they've said that they have told themselves that's the case with the current advisor. And how much time do they want to spend there? None. See, that's the emotion you tap into. Disgust, anger, distrustfulness. They can't leave their advisor soon enough. Does any other system other than the 5Q system do that? Because having them think I'm smart, having them think you're smart, having them think I don't want to pay taxes. Guys, if they decide they don't want to pay taxes, and you come up with a good idea for that, does that mean they have to do it with you? If you show them they're paying too much in fees, and they don't want to pay those fees anymore, does that mean they have to do it with you? No, they go back to their current guy and say, I'm paying too much fees, and what's their current guy say? Okay, well, we can get you something else. Okay, but don't let that happen again. Okay. The only thing that the other guy can't save, whether it's a real advisor or it's a company they're working with a 401k or whatever, is that I can't trust that person anymore. They can't say a single thing. Anything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. Anything that comes out of their mouth is to be distrusted. See, when they get to that point, they have to move to you. That's the emotion we tap into. But do we as advisors ever say a bad word, utter a bad syllable, or squeak a bad sound about their current advisor? Do we ever say anything bad about their advisor? No. We just help the client say it themselves. We facilitate the client learning where they're at. And you got to remember they're a person. They're not a sale. The litmus test is if someone did this to me, how would I feel? If someone did this to my mom, how would they feel? If somebody did this to my grandma, how would I feel? When you're leaving a voicemail, if somebody left me this voicemail, what would I think? Now, this is great. When somebody ghosts you, and you start leaving messages, basically pleading messages, wanting messages, talking about we got to get this thing done, messages. How do I leave a voicemail? I'm like, hey, if somebody ghosted me, yeah, and it would happen. I made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes because you become too smart for your britches and take shortcuts. When you take shortcuts, that's when people ghost you. But when I ghost me, I'm like, I made a mistake, so here's what I have to do. It's obviously the reason they don't want to move is what? Or the reason they don't want to talk to me is they decided they don't want to move the money. So I'm going to address that right in the voicemail and say, what's in the voicemail? Hey, you haven't gotten back to me a few times. That's pretty clear to me. Then you want to stay with your current advisor. That's cool. That makes sense to me. Leave the money where it's at. We don't need to touch the money. Please. That's not an issue for me. Leave the money where it's at if that makes you more comfortable. You work too hard for that money for me to tell you where it's at. So go ahead and leave the money. But because we unearthed the fact that your power of attorney not working with Social Security, please come in. Let's take that taken care of. As a financial advisor, as a fiduciary, once I bring that need up, I'm required by ethics to help you fulfill that need, to close that gap. So leave the money where it's at. You don't want to move the money, leave it where it's at. But at least let's come in. Let's get the power of attorney taken care of. We'll shake hands. We'll talk about what a great adventure we've had, and you can go on your way. Leave the money where it's at, but at least come in, take care of the power of attorney. So how many times did I tell them that voicemail? Leave the money where it's at. How many times did I tell them, leave the money where it's at? Because that's the reason they didn't want to come in, right? Wasn't because I smelled, I don't think. Wasn't because I was pushy. No, because I followed the system with open-ended questions and gossiping them. So why didn't they want to come? They didn't want to come in because they didn't want to move the money. So how many times in that voicemail that I said, leave the money where it's at? How many times? About, in general. How many did a lot or a little? Probably 6, 7, 8 times. So is it clear in their mind that I'm not asking them to move the money? Yes. And then they would come in. At least 50% of them. I think much more, but at least 50% of them would come in, and I would take care of the power of attorney. And then while they're there, I say, hey, you know what? They got these other things they take care of too. Listen, why don't we just take care of those two? The funny thing is, I would never bring up the money, but when they would come in and take care of the power of attorney or whatever they came in, that one thing that they came in to take care of, guess what they would inevitably do? They would start to explain to me why they didn't want to move the money. So after I took care of that thing, I did not bring up the money. I took care of the power of attorney, whatever it may be. And then they would start to explain to me why they didn't move the money. So once they explained to me why they didn't move the money, guess what that allowed me to do? To get on their side, to gotch them, and then to ask them open-ended questions so they would decide, you know what, leaving the money where it's at is stupid. I never really got anybody that came in and told me, because I said, I don't care about the money, leave where it's at, would bring up the money. And once they brought up the money, guess what I was able to do? Tear off all the scabs, have them start bleeding again, and remembering why their current guy was screwing them. And they would end up moving the money. So leaving that voicemail, would you be okay if you were that person that didn't want to move the money? Would you have been okay with that voicemail? Or if it was sent in email format, would you be okay with that? Hey, you know what? Leave the money, leave the money, leave the money, leave the money. Let's just get care of that one thing as an advisor. See, yes. So that's a litmus test. If that was somebody addressing me that way, whether it's via voicemail, in person, email, how would I react? So guys, please, you've got a system, like I told you over and over again, this is summer. Summer is when you should be working on your skills. You've got a system that will get virtually anybody you get in contact with to move their money to you. You don't have to invent it. You don't have to spend the 3 years that I spent building the system. It's been built for you. Here's the funny thing. Not only has it been built for you, the first 2 or 3 years I actually used it with other advisors. We fine-tuned it so it was even better than what it was when I used it. Because we had then, just not my experience, but hundreds of other advisors' experience, thousands of meetings. So we basically fine-tuned this thing so it is perfect. As we've gone through those scripts, again, I've asked you, would your clients, would your prospects answer any differently than Jeff? And you've all said no, they would answer the exact, because that's why. Because by doing it over and over and over again, it's kind of like Groundhog Day, right? Thousands of times he went through Groundhog Day till till his day was perfect. Not a single thing went wrong that day. That's what we've got with the 21-point checklist. So make sure you're utilizing. Summer is a great time to be learning the 21-point checklist scripts, to be doing those 15-minute drills, to hone your GOT skills, okay? Make sense? Well, thanks for letting me pontificate today and get on my soapbox. But please, guys, you've got the world by the tail. Summer is the time to be honing those skills, okay? You guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.